What's up, Discord? Welcome back to another market analysis, a weekly analysis. We're going to be covering from the 12th to the 17th of February. All right, so as you guys know, we jump right into it. We're going to look at DXY first, and then we're going to cover all the other pairs that I'm looking at that I will analyze, and we'll see what the best possible moves is going to be over the week, and we'll go from there. Okay, so looking at DXY right now, if we start on the higher time frame, as we've talked about before many times, DXY, as of right now, the order flow is bearish. Okay, order flow is bearish ever since we did this distribution off of this higher time frame point of interest, and since then we've just been seeing redistributions to the downside, right? So going in and seeing what the latest thing that happened, we have an accumulation. So our bearish order flow is holding from over here. We have this redistro right here going down. We have an accumulation. So all I want to see us do is whether or not we're going to respect this redistribution right there, this point of interest. So that's where I see that we're coming to. Honestly, I see this accumulation was created for us to get up here to this point of interest. So that's going to be the major area that we'll have to be looking out for, whether or not we go up here and we distribute to continue lower, right? Or we could give a possible reaction here just to reaccumulate and go higher. If that does happening, either one, we're prepared for. If that does happening and we do break this high, then I believe we are coming up here. Okay, that is going to be my next major area that I see this market targeting, is all the way over here. So just keep a watch on DXY. It's very important where it's at right now. Right now we're in the middle of nowhere, so we could do one or two things. We could either go higher, because this looks like it's already going to be a reaccumulation already, so we could just go higher and get into our point of interest, or we could retrace a little bit lower, accumulate again, and then come into our point of interest, right? But I do see us coming into this point of interest 100%. Okay, so we're going to watch out on DXY. We're going to see how that go ahead and moves itself. As you guys know, if DXY goes higher, EU is going to go lower, and if DXY goes lower, EU is going to go higher. Okay, so moving on to EU, what do we see? DXY is moving higher. Look at EU is going lower. So EU, though, has already created a redistro. So it looks like EU is what's leading us right now, because we've already created that redistribution. So as you guys can see, if I go back to DXY, we have an accumulation here. On EU, we have a distribution, right? So this distribution has formed, getting us back into this previous accumulation, which is holding our order flow. So as you guys can see, it is literally the opposite. It's upside down. Okay, these two markets correlate with each other, and it's literally upside down. So on EU now, what do we have? We have, this is what's holding our order flow. Have a distribution. We have a redistribution getting us into this point of interest. This is where I want to see us come into, to see whether or not we're going to accumulate here and continue higher, or we could potentially just blow past this area. And if that happens, that means now EU has returned back into its bearish state. For us, for now, order flow is bearish, which means we could possibly start looking for shorts, because as we know on a higher time frame, EU is bearish. Okay, I really wanted to see us come into this huge point of interest right here, but we did not make it, which is okay. So I want to see if this is right here is going to be the distribution that causes us to change order flow, that gets us back into our bearish move. All right, and I've already planned for that. I had points of interest. We know we had a point of interest sitting at right here. We see that we redistributed. So until we invalidate this redistribution, I'm going to be looking for shorts sooner, which is going to be out of this redistribution that just confirmed itself, right? So you can kind of see that these two are kind of like the same thing, right? We have our main manipulation. We have our slingshot, and now I'm just waiting to see if the market is going to react out of this slingshot. Okay, but as you guys know, for those of you in the Discord that understand, we know that this as well is also a point of interest. So what does that mean? That means even if the market blows past this blue shaded area, we could still trade within here as long as we do not break this high. This blue shaded area is just a precise area that I would like the market to react out of. It makes sense for it to happen, but doesn't mean that we can't go out of it to still distribute. All right, as long as we don't break this high, which is our manipulation, we should be fine. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking at on EU. I want to see if we can come higher into here and get us lower. Okay, get us lower into this point of interest even more. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at EU right now. We're not going to get too deep into it. We're going to keep it that simple. Moving on to GU. So if I go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. All right, on GU, order flow is bullish from this low to this high. We did break this high right here. The wick did go above this high. So it is a bullish order flow for me. Accumulation that was created to break the high. This is our point of interest. The market could come down and go into our point of interest even more, but we did react off the 50% of the manipulation. If I go ahead and draw out my FEB, you can see the market reacted off of the 50% of the manipulation, but understand we could go lower into the point of interest, which is our precise area that the market could come into, but our manipulation is still valid from the 50 to the 80. All right, so what does that mean? If I go ahead and mark out my fibs, you can see we reacted off the 50% of this manipulation, and as well we have the 80% sitting down here, which is probably the 50% of this point of interest. Let's see. It's close, right? Off by like a pip or two. So you can kind of see where the fibs are kind of correlating in with each other. So that gives us some confirmation. What does that mean? That means, let's see, this is my extreme. That's my extreme. What I could do here is I could set a limit order here. I'm not, but I could set a limit order here if the stop loss was fine. This is too huge of a stop loss. We're not taking that. So, but just based off of this confluence right here, we have this being an accumulation, right? This is an accumulation on lower time frame. This is a higher time frame accumulation. We have our manipulation. The 50% of our the 80%, I mean, of our manipulation lines up with the 50% of our accumulation down here. So what does that mean? We could potentially take an order right off of there, with this being our extreme of this order flow. Okay, so just giving you guys an example right there, but we're not going to take a limit order from there. That's too big of a stop loss. We're going to wait for the market to actually trade in within this area, and we'll go from there, right? I'll keep that fibs there just in case. So what has happened so far? Well, the market has already accumulated, right? And we accumulate off the 50% of the entire manipulation. So that's why I'm even looking for buys right now. The accumulation is not 100% clean, but it is an accumulation that occurred. And then you can see we have news that gave us this last mitigation of the fractal accumulation sitting down here inside of our spring. So what am I looking for? I have marked out this as my last area that needs to be mitigated. So what I want to see is I want to see us come into the 50% here. That's why I have this blue shaded area. It's covered from the 50% down to the 80, right? So this is the area that I want to see us trade into, and I want to see if we can get an accumulation. I have an alert sitting there. I want to see if we can get an accumulation that'll take us higher, okay? If we do not accumulate within this area right here, then I am gonna be convinced that we're gonna come into the precise point of interest, okay, which is our extreme. Okay, all right, so moving on to AU. Let's see what I have so far on AU. Okay, AU, we broke lower time frame structure, as we know. So right now, this here, and let me show you guys some market cycle. Okay, we have accumulation, reaccumulation, distribution, right, which breaks our high. So what does that mean? This is a confirmed leg. So now we have our structure right here, which was from this high to this low. That's got broken. So now our structure is from this low to this high. Okay, so we have a clean market cycle, which gives us more confluence about our leg. What does that mean? That means now, since this here is our reaccumulation. This is where we're gonna have to focus on, because this reaccumulation, this entire reaccumulation, is technically the slingshot that caused us to break this high, right? This is the last major demand zone that was used to break this high. All right. So what does that mean? This means that this is going to be our first area in here to look out for buys. Okay, we're going to look at that area for buys. Why is that? Well, let's go ahead and zoom in. We don't have to worry about the accumulation down here until this gets invalidated. So right now we're going to worry about this area. All right, we'll talk about the accumulation down there if the market breaks this area. So we're not going to waste time. Let's zoom in. You can already see that I have this area here marked out, and I want to kind of explain it a little bit more to you guys. So here's how I go about breaking my points of interest and zones down. Okay, so if we look at it from the reaccumulation standpoint, what is the shakeout of our reaccumulation? The shakeout of our reaccumulation is going to be here. This is going to be the shakeout of our reaccumulation. So what does that mean? That means as long as we do not invalidate this here, our slingshot is still valid. Okay, that means this is technically my point of interest. This huge area is technically my point of interest. Okay, so what I would be looking for is from the 50 here down to the 80, this whole area right here that you can see I just made a box. This right here would be technically my area to look for buys. Okay, so understand that this is a huge area. We know that. That's why I have another area. So what did I do? I scaled in, I went in. What am I looking for? Okay, I'm zooming in. If we look at this on a, let's go to a smaller time frame. Let's talk about this reaccumulation itself. How can we make a more precise area? How can we precisely divide our points of interest? Okay, we know this is our slingshot of our reaccumulation. That's what is keeping our slingshot alive. Okay, if we break this low, then our slingshot is dead and we have to look down lower into the previous area, which is going to be accumulation, the accumulation on the bottom, right? But right now we'll focus on this. What's going on right now? We have, let's go ahead and look at the structure that was created within the accumulation, the reaccumulation. I'm sorry. We have low going to our high, low going to our high. We invalidate this low, breaking structure, right? Which means this is an attempt to distribute, right? Then the market accumulates here, goes higher, reaccumulates right here, goes higher, reaccumulates, then we break this high. So what does that mean? That means if we look at this, right? Delete everything here. This right here goes higher and we break the high. Cool. This is the accumulation here. That's the origin of us breaking this high. What is the slingshot? This is the slingshot. So if we go in and we zoom in, what needs to be mitigated? Is our accumulation mitigated? Okay, let's see. The market came back down. Let's look at our 50 and our 80. Both is mitigated. Cool. So that means this is what needed to be mitigated next, right? Let's look at it. Let's mark it out. I'm pretty sure we know it's been mitigated already. Let's see what mitigated it. Boom, our 50% is mitigated. Right here, we can see the 50% got mitigated here. The market goes higher. What needs mitigation now? This, right? Okay, did this get mitigated? Yes, we can see that. Let's draw our 50 and our 80. We mitigated right here. Okay, so what is the last thing that needs to be mitigated? I have it marked out. This last push. So within this structure, here's our slingshot. Why? Because before we broke this high, this was the last demand. So this was the last demand created to break this high. Within also a point of interest. How do I know this was a point of interest? That was our point of interest, right? I'm gonna keep it like that just to kind of show you guys if I zoom out. because remember, we were previously bearish. So this right here was the point of interest that we're looking at, and the market attempted to distribute within here but failed. So technically this right here is going to be our slingshot of the reaccumulation. Okay, so we have two slingshots. We have the slingshot of our leg, and then we have the slingshot of the reaccumulation. So now we have two areas to look out for. We have, this is going to be my first area, which is the slingshot of the reaccumulation. That's going to be my first point of interest to look for. And we also know if the market ends up passing through this, our reaccumulation is still valid until we invalidate this shakeout. Okay, so hope you guys understood that breakdown. But looking into it right now, what am I looking for? I'm kind of seeing an ice form, so I'm thinking that we're gonna redistribute here. Probably get one more move to just redistribute. Once we create that redistribution, if you want to, you could potentially look for smaller shorts to get us into this area. If we are inside this area, I'm just going to be looking for buys, okay? I'm not going to be looking for shorts if we already tapped into this area. I already have my alert sitting at the 50%, so that's what I'm going to be waiting for. Honestly, I'm just waiting for us to get down. If I do get a short in here before we get down here, that would be perfect, okay? That would be very good. So I'll look to get a short before we tap into this area, okay? That would be the main thing that we would want to do. So that's it right there. All right, guys. And I think some of you are saying we already tapped into it. Yeah, but you can kind of see that we are creating ice. What does that mean? That means we're going to go deeper into the area because we're not at discounted pricing. The 50 and the 80 is sitting down here. This is where we want to see the market get into. That is going to be the best point for the market. And we did not create an accumulation up here. We don't have any buyers sitting up here right now, right? Because if we had buyers, you see momentum move to the downside, and now that we have tapped into the open of this area, you can see the market is slowing down. What does that mean? Buyers don't really have any momentum here. We didn't create anything that got buyers interest, so the market's just going to fall down again, and here is where I'm expecting buyers. If buyers want to get in, this discounted pricing is where I'm expecting buyers to get into. Okay. So let me go ahead and slim down my area, and I'm going to make it easier. I'm going to put this here blue, and I will make this. There you go. All right. Let me try to get through this a little bit faster for you guys so we're not here forever. All right, so UCAD, and we're just going to talk about what we talked about last week. UCAD created a change of character up here by breaking this high, right? We all understood that. Here is the slingshot of this leg. So from this low to this high is our lower time frame order flow leg. So what does that mean? That means that we're either looking here or we're looking somewhere inside of here. This right here was the last demand zone. The market comes inside of here. We can see we have an accumulation. What happened? Let's go ahead and look at this now. Let's zoom in. What happened inside this area? We have 3 accumulations. No, we have 2. Sorry. We have 2 accumulations. We have 1, 2, 3 drives, that being our accumulation. We have a accumulation within the last drive, and the market accumulated here, went higher and reaccumulated, and we went higher. So what am I looking for? Here's what I'm going to be looking for. The first area I'm looking for is here. I'm not setting an alert here. I'm not setting a limit order off that. If I'm going to set a limit order, if you want to set a limit order, this is where you're going to set a limit order, somewhere here. Okay, because understand, if we have 3 accumulations, 2, 3, and we just created a change of character right here off of this off of that higher accumulation, we just created a change of character. What's holding us right now from this low to this high? This is just a continuation move, right? So what does that mean? That means if we do invalidate this reaccumulation, which we could, this here is going to be our origin. Right? The accumulation is going to be our origin, which means the origin is where you want to take your limit orders off of. Okay, guys? So just be wary of that. But what I will do, though, I am looking for buys within this zone. Okay, so if the market wants to give us an accumulation right here, I will 100% take it. But if we do invade this area, I'm still looking for buys out of here. Just to get that clear to you guys. All right. Moving on to UCAD. Kind of looking at the same thing. We broke this high, creating a change of character. And now the market is coming back down into this zone. Pretty simple. I'm waiting for us to really get down a little bit more, top into the 50%, and I'll be looking for accumulations as long as we do not break this low. Guys, pretty simple, guys. Nothing crazy. This guy's know on a higher time frame, UCAD is bullish. Okay, we're just playing into lower time frame order flow. This was small order flow we're playing out of, right? So, and you can also see that this is technically creating an accumulation, right? So we want to see how that happens. I'll be looking for buy opportunities within this zone. Okay. EG, I don't really have this inside of a point of interest yet. I mean, it is, but it's not the type of, I really wanted us to come within the 50, at least the 50. I really wanted us to come at least the 50 before I look for any buys, because if we look at it, this low going here, making this our high, this was our break of order flow. Okay, that's our break of order flow. This is the last demand zone before we broke that high. So what does that mean? This is going to be our slingshot. I just marked out the slingshot. This is the 50. This is the 80 of the slingshot. So I at least want us to come into the 50% to look for accumulation, especially since we don't really have any point of interest to mark out right here, right? The only point of interest I would mark out of this is here. Because if we zoom in, you can kind of see this is an accumulation, right? We can see the accumulation here. There's a fractal accumulation. Let me go down, lower time frame, show you guys give you guys a little bit more of an idea of what I'm talking about. So here it is. We have an accumulation. We go higher. We do not break the high yet. Distribute, turn into a reaccumulation that mitigates this accumulation. So this fractal accumulation is mitigated, right? We came down here, we tapped it, we mitigated it, right? So now market goes higher. So technically, if I'm going to give myself a precise zone, this would be it right here. This is what needs mitigation, okay? And as you guys can see, where is that at? That's in discounted pricing, which is below the 50%. So I really have no reasoning to look for buys here at all. Where the market's at currently, it's in no man's land. Right? We have no reason to buy. We don't have any confluence that gives us a reason to buy the market. So this is where we're going to be looking from. Okay. And let me put my alert sitting here as well. All right, let's go on to the last two markets that I want to talk about, which is going to be CADCHF and ACAD. Let's go to CADCHF. Now, CADCHF has been pretty ugly. I will be honest. Honestly, I'm just waiting for us to break this high. I've already told you guys, we've seen too much repeated taps inside of this supply zone, and the market is not going anywhere. So what does that mean? That means sellers are not getting the market to move. So buyers are just accumulating orders. So what's going to happen? This is potentially going to maybe give us another pullback and break this high. Once we break this high, that's when I'll start looking for my buying opportunities, or we create a change of character, which we have not yet until we break this high right here. So till we do one of those two, I'll be waiting. And like I said before on CADCHF, order flow is bearish. All right, so even if this here ends up going higher and we do take longs, let's say we do start taking longs to go higher, remember this is where we're targeting, okay? So that's going to be that for CADCHF. And then going into, and I'll actually put this here. All right, going into ACAD, last but not least. Let's look at it. Okay, so zooming out, ACAD is pretty similar to AUD USD. If you remember what I talked about on AUD USD, then this is going to be very simple to understand, because I'm not going to go deep as I did with AUD USD, right? Let's look at it. So we have high, low. That was our structure. That was our structural leg from this side to this low. This is the accumulation of our, this is the origin. Sorry, I completely messed that up. That's the accumulation that is now our origin, right? Why? Because this high has now been invalidated. So what does that mean? This accumulation down here is now holding our structure. So this is our origin inside of this accumulation. Now what? If we go higher, what happens? We reaccumulate and we go higher. So this here is our slingshot. That's our accumulation. That's our slingshot. Those two areas are going to be the most important areas to look for buys. That's basically what that's saying. Those are going to be the most important areas to look for a reaction. Okay, it's always going to be those specific two areas because they're very important, because this here holds the responsibility of holding the structure all together. Okay, if this gets invalidated, structure is broken. So that has a big responsibility. This also has the second, I would say, to that responsibility, which is also holding our order flow. This is holding our order flow structure. And this is what was the last demand zone to break this high. Okay, so this is what's holding our structure. This is what created this new, I'd say, confirm that we have a new structure, because this is what broke this high. Doesn't mean this can't get invalidated, right? Because the most important job is at the origin. But this still has an important role itself. So this is why we call it that slingshot, and we want to look inside of it as well for any opportunities. And I'm going to just keep it simple. This here, this huge move to the downside is our manipulation. Okay? Everything here has technically been mitigated except for this. So if we want to simplify it down some more, right? If we want a precise area like I gave you guys in the last one, let's go ahead and look at it. So you can see right here, this wick, which is part of this last manipulation within this drive, within this move, this has been unmitigated. So if I'm looking for a precise area to trade from, maybe I want to look to see if I can find an area instead of waiting, right? Wait for the market to get down here. We look for accumulation. If you see that accumulation, try to take it higher, okay? Because also, you wouldn't be wrong in doing that, because first, once we get into here, we have tapped into the 50% of this manipulation, okay? So that means we tapped into the 50%, which means you are in discounted pricing, which means you have a right to look for buys, okay? If we end up invalidating this little precise precision point of interest that we're using as, then we know that we're coming to the 80, okay? As long as this low is not broken, we're looking for longs. Okay, guys? And if the slingshot gets invalidated, which is here, if this as the slingshot gets invalidated, that means we're coming down to the origin. So what can you do? As the market is making its way to the origin, you can look for shorts, okay? As long as you play the structure, as long as you play the order flow and you play it correctly and you know what you're looking for, okay? So that is going to be it, guys. That's going to be it for this market analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.